Okay, back with Congressman Walter Jones in the studio. Back on Talk of the Town here for Wednesday, June the 4th. And the Congressman has joined us live in the studio. How are you, sir?
Henry, I'm doing fine. And I, driving over today, I almost had a car accident. I was listening to your laugh tracks, and I just about fell out of the car. They're the funniest things I've ever heard. And, I mean, you and Trent do a great job, but those laugh tracks really can get you smiling on your drive.
I appreciate that. And by the way, we were talking about this during the commercial break. You come on Tom and Sadie's show, and you take phone calls, but we don't ever do it here. So we're going to reserve a little bit of time at the end of maybe about 8:45, something like that, to take a few phone calls.
Be delighted
if you want to, Michael. Which means you got to come, Michael. You got to come help. We didn't do this during the break. You got to get the congressman an earpiece and get it ready because I think it's laying around on the floor over here somewhere.
Well, it's interesting times in Raleigh. As I was listening to you talk about your last 2 days in Raleigh, and then with all that's happened with the Bergdahl swap, 5-for-1, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's another. We can talk about that a little bit later, but. Interesting times for our state and nation, quite frankly.
Really is. We may be suffering from the chickens have come home to roost.
Amen. That's a great.
You've been warning for years and years and years that we were going to get to a tipping point where we just couldn't afford to do anything, and I mean, and we're the state is struggling. The federal budget is struggling because we have. Made some poor decisions over the years, and we're having to deal with it right now. But Congressman, I think more than that, it's the next generation who's really going to pay the price.
Well, there's no question about it. And before we came on the air, I quoted Pat Buchanan, and Pat supported me in my reelection bid, by the way. Sent a small check to my campaign, which I was grateful for. Didn't know it was coming. So, but
he's always been a good supporter.
Oh yeah, particularly on foreign policy. Yeah. And I've been a supporter of his. I don't know which way you want to say it, but this is his quote, and I think it's so apropos. Is it not a symptom of senility to be born from the world so we can defend the world? I'm going to be able to recite that the next time I'm on your show.
We borrow from the world so we can defend the world.
So we can defend the world.
Right.
And
if we're having to borrow from them, maybe they should be defending us.
And I
don't think I trust them to, though.
Well, I appreciate the honor and privilege to serve. Of course, I have an election in November. We're taking that very seriously. But the point is that I continue to see this country borrowing more and more money from foreign governments so we can spend it overseas. And then I hear you talk about the Medicaid problem facing our state, other problems facing our state, and then the other 49 states, they have their problems, but yet we take care of foreign countries. Yeah. We're building roads in Afghanistan. We're building schools in Afghanistan. And where does it make any sense anymore? I don't know.
I just could not agree with you more. I don't get it. By the way, let's start with congratulations. We had you on the show the morning after the election, but you went through a tough primary, and the analysts have tried to decide whether this was your toughest election ever. You had a tough general election about 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
And but this was by far your toughest challenge from a fellow Republican. Have you been able to get any perspective now that we're down the road a little bit?
I have, Henry, and I hope, we do the little show called Washington Watch. Mm-hmm. I think you carry it from time to time.
On Cable 7, yeah.
And I will tell you that I hope that people will watch it, not because I'm on it. Let me make that clear up front. But Trevor Potter, who is the former chairman of the Federal Elections Commission, a Republican, talked about how Citizens United, that decision made 4 years ago by the United States Supreme Court, will do more to destroy campaigning in America than anything. And he he's a graduate of Harvard College and Virginia School of Law. And I would tell you what, I was so impressed with I'd met him but never had a conversation with Trevor. But I hope that if you do carry it, I hope people will watch it because he makes a lot of sense. And if we don't do something about it, let me make the point. The super PACs, which was created by Citizens United, spent the majority of money, and then if you factor in what the opponent spent, it was over $1.4 trillion, million dollars, excuse me, $1.4 million.
I was going to say, you survived that much money. You're better than I thought you were.
And our report will show in July that we had about 125,000 to defend us. That's 10-to-1 odds.
Yeah.
And I've said so many times that I give God the credit and God's people for not believing the lies, distortions that were used against me. And I thank the good Lord and the people for that.
The people may not understand how this works. The Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court allows outside groups, and you know, you and I may have a little bit of a different perspective on this, but I think that they should be. I think if these outside groups are going to come in and start spending money attacking a Walter Jones, that we ought to be able to know more about who is spending the money and why. That was the thing that bothered me the most. There was a sense, I think, that that this money was being spent by groups. As it turns out, it really wasn't the message that they were sending was a lot different than their real motivations, in my view, because as it turns out, one of the groups actually was one of the groups that had funded all of the gay marriage stuff in California, and that was never brought out, but yet they were making it look as though you weren't conservative enough.
Right, and about spending.
But the truth of the matter is they didn't want you to be conservative.
That was the Ricketts group.
Yeah.
I read an article last night. I had not read it prior to the election, but it was written about 30 days before the election about the Bill Kristol group, and which was the Israeli group that
Right.
had the misinformation, because I don't vote for foreign aid, which is true. There's no problem there, I mean, with the facts. But saying that I was opposed to Israel's right to exist is just an outright lie.
Yeah.
And then I read what Kristol said. Well, I got calls from people in eastern North Carolina, not East North, but North Carolina. And so, you know, to me, sunshine, full disclosure is absolutely necessary, because this, until they changed the Citizens United decision, I think it was a 5-4 decision, then I can tell you you're going to see more and more. People are already saying that outside money and what Tom Tillis and Kay Hagan will spend will probably be a $70 million race in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I mean, and here you are talking
And
about,
they're already telling lies about Tom Tillis.
Here you're talking about people who are going to lose their Medicaid money.
Yeah.
This whole system is just out of control, and what it does, it cheats the system, because it cheats the voter with misinformation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, I talked to some people during the campaign, some friends of mine from Eastern North Carolina who are Jewish. I actually had them approach. I had more than one of my Jewish friends in Eastern North Carolina approach me and say, "Henry, what's the truth about Walter Jones? You know, is he really against Israel? Why? Talk about that for a second, and talk to our Jewish friends and explain kind of what that attack on you was about, because it was more. Am I right? It was more an attack on how you vote on the budget." And so there was a lot of connecting the dots there.
Yes, thank you, Henry. I have never voted for foreign aid appropriations bills, and this has nothing to do with Israel. It's just I don't know how a nation that cannot pay its bills unless it borrows money from the world, as Pat Buchanan said, how we can continue to spend money overseas. So this has philosophically been my position. On this issue, they made reference to a vote that in 2011, we had a bill in the House that says that we will institute sanctions against Iran. I voted for it. Okay, the bill then goes from the House, it passed, to the Senate. In the Senate, they kept it for several weeks, maybe a couple of months, and they add Syria, sanctions against Syria, and sanctions against Iran. I did not believe that the right thing to do was to put sanctions against Syria because of al-Qaeda and the other rebel groups that would benefit. So therefore, when it came back, it had sanctions against Iran, which I supported, and sanctions against Syria, which I did not support. So I voted no on the bill. This is part of the game that everybody plays. They're doing it with Tom Tillis and Kay Hagan. I mean,
so they connect those dots and say, therefore, Walter Jones is not supporting Israel.
And Henry, there's a fellow named Steve Cohen, who's a Democrat. He's a Jewish American.
Yeah.
Came to me the last week and sought me out and said, Walter, I have seen what they're saying about you in Israel. He said, it is not true. I will write a letter to your district. He said, I am a Democrat and I'm Jewish, and I will tell them this is not true. I said, Steve, if you had told me this 30 days ago, I would have said, please write the letter. But 1 week out, we can't do much with it.
Gotcha. Well, as it turned out,
Well, it was
as I always predict, you were strong. You were strong as battery acid, and you were.
Well, the night of the election, I watched you and Tom, and y'all had given up about 10 o'clock, went to bed, and said, "I don't."
I apologize to you the next day for it. I have to admit, I left the studio that night. And again, the State Board of Elections had real problems, and we thought that Pitt County was already in. And the truth of the matter is, Pitt County had not been reported yet, and we were getting numbers that looked like you were going to lose.
Well, I love
and then Pitt County came in and pulled you over the top.
I love Pitt County, and I would tell you real quickly that it was sad that the State Board could not provide the people of North Carolina with accurate information.
Yeah.
We had to get our information at 10 o'clock when you and Tom said we don't know where it's going, and you were right to do that. We got it from Real Clear Politics in Washington, D.C., who had already declared us the winner.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out. I've asked that question, hadn't gotten an answer yet. How does Real Clear Politics get the numbers when the State Board of Election doesn't have them? They must have had exit polls or something.
They had to.
Yeah. Congressman Walter Jones in the studio with us. All right, let's talk about a couple of current topics. You brought up the Bergdorf prisoner exchange. We're making deals with the Taliban now, and we gave them 5 back to get 1, and there's a lot of questions about whether the President of the United States even has the authority to do that. Now, you're on the Armed Services Committee. What is your view of that deal?
Well, I'm very concerned by the way this whole arrangement was put together. I think the President had a responsibility based on the law to come to Congress, House and Senate leadership, and tell them of the plan, to give them a 30-day notice. That was not done. In my understanding, at this point, it was not done. In addition, I don't understand the justification for 5 for 1. That's not very good odds, particularly when you're talking about terrorists. And so we're going to hold hearings in the House next Tuesday, Wednesday. The Senate is going to hold hearings. Their hearings will be classified. The hearings that we're holding in the House will be open to the public, which I think is fine, and I have no problem with that, except when you have open hearings and you ask a question of the witnesses, and they might say, well, I cannot give you the answer in an open forum. So, but anyway, we are going to hold hearings Tuesday or Wednesday in Washington, and I look forward to being there. And my biggest concern is, see, Henry, it's just like the president bypassed Congress to bomb Libya. What did Libya give us? 4 dead Americans. Mm-hmm. I mean, the country is in chaos. It still is in chaos.
Right.
Okay, my statement months ago in a press conference was, if the president should go into Syria without coming to Congress, then I will introduce articles of impeachment. Okay, now the point I'm trying to make is, this president, all of them do it, but this one seems to be the most blatant in bypassing Congress and the Constitution. Forget Congress, but how about the Constitution? I'm very concerned about it.
Yeah, as well you should be. The other semi-scandal, well, I guess it's not a semi-scandal. Scandal is what's happening with veterans in these VA hospitals. You fought very hard to get that new VA hospital in Greenville. And now Shinseki has been forced into resignation. We're finding out that a lot of veterans just are not being taken care of as they should be by the VA hospitals. And the sad thing about it is, in addition to that, they're also not even they're not even telling the truth about how much the wait time is and that kind of thing. And so that's got to be frustrating to you as well.
It is. It's not fair to the veterans. And the sad thing is, this problem has been building over the years. I am in Congress. I work for our veterans. I do the best I can for the veterans. I'm not on the Veterans Health Committee. There have been reports that have been put together by the Inspector General that have gone that Congress has a right to read. I'm sorry, I've not read those reports. I'll be honest about it, but neither has the Committee of Jurisdiction. I don't believe in building on the past. I think what you need to do is learn from the past and try to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I think there's a bipartisan effort in the House and Senate to get to the bottom of this problem. And we need to, we've got a good situation here in Greenville. Anything can be better, let me make that clear. But I believe sincerely that the American people and the Congress are going to do what is necessary to fix this problem. It is a very serious problem. Anytime a veteran dies when he or she is waiting to be seen by a doctor is absolutely unacceptable.
Right, right. All right, let's open up the phone lines. You just hold that up to your ear there, Congressman, if you want to.
I don't know how to put it on.
Yeah, just hold it up there. That's good enough. And if anybody wants to call in, 561-8255, 561-8255. That's the telephone number. And we're getting the Congressman hooked up here. Michael's working on his ear. And if you got a question you'd like to ask the Congressman, here we are live at 15 in front of 9. Here you're listening to the replay on WNBU in the noon hour today. This is live here at 8:45 on Wednesday morning, and that is the phone number if you want to call in, 561-8255. The other thing that happened recently that is I know that I saw your statement on this. Very sad that we lost a Marine. You've been concerned about the Osprey.
Yeah.
For a long time, and here we have, and I'm not sure it had anything to do with the mechanics of the airplane. We really don't know the answer, but for a long time, you've been involved in concerns about the Osprey helicopter, and we had another Marine fall out of one a couple weeks ago here in eastern North Carolina and die.
I talked to the Marine Corps last week, and they are still trying to find out the circumstances of that tragedy. And we don't know if the safety belt in the plane broke, or we just don't know. But hopefully they will have a resolution in the next couple of weeks. But it is a very tragic situation. Tell you something, Henry, that might be of interest to your listeners and viewers. I yesterday went to the grocery store, and in the section looking for cereal, my wife gave me a list, and I ran into.
You get your list too?
Oh yeah. This was.
Somebody called in the other day and said, we saw Congressman Jones mowing his own grass.
Yeah, I do that as well. I think this was part of my marriage contract with my wife that I do the grocery shopping. We've been married 8 years, and I think I've done it every year. But yesterday I ran into this lady, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you Walter Jones?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I am the aunt of Connie Gruber in Jacksonville." Connie's husband, Brooke Gruber, was the co-pilot of the V-22 that I, for 12 years, have been trying to clear the names of Brooks Gruber and John Brell, the pilot.
Yeah.
And this was her aunt, a lady that lives in Lenoir County, and she said, "We just really appreciate what you're trying to do."
You've really gone to the mat for those folks.
Well, we're going to get it done, and I think God gave me another term to make sure we do get it done.
All right, 561-8255. If you want to ask a question to Congressman Jones, let's kind of keep it brief. We only got about 6-7 more minutes here in this segment. Mike, good morning. You're on with Congressman Jones.
Good morning, Congressman. Mike Turner from Elizabeth City.
Hey, Mike.
I went to the VA a while back for my knees, which are both worn out, and they referred me to an orthopedic doctor. And I tried to get an appointment with various orthopedic doctors. And two of them up there, two big doctors groups, would not accept the VA. I finally forced one of them into taking me for an appointment and found out that the reason they don't want to take the VA patients is it takes too long in order to
be reimbursed.
complete a examination.
Right.
They want to be able to have you walk into the office, get your x-rays in the office, get everything done, and make a decision. But
all right, Mike,
VA,
let the Congressman respond to that. This is kind of some of the things that we're hearing about the VA.
Mike, truthfully, that is what we're trying to figure out. How can we fix the system so that it's more efficient for people like yourself who serve this nation. And that is what's going to be at the forefront the next few weeks and few months in Washington. The House and Senate are definitely going to try to do what we can. The system has aspects to it that does work fairly well and other aspects that need to be addressed, and that's what we're going to be doing. And if you saw that Senator Sanders is going to have a hearing tomorrow, I would suggest any of the veterans in eastern North Carolina that got access to C-SPAN or the internet, go and watch the hearing that Senator Sanders will hold. Senator Richard Burr is vice chairman of that health committee on the Senate side. I think it's going to be very interesting, but I can assure you, Mike, that you're not going to be forgotten, and these problems are going to be worked out. It's going to take some time, but we're not going to let it go off the front page, I promise you.
Appreciate that call out of Elizabeth City this morning. Let's go to Lori. Lori, you're on with Congressman Jones. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me, Henry?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Dr. Jones. I'm a nurse practitioner down here in Belhaven, North Carolina. And as you know, our hospital is closing the end of the month. But rarely do we get VAs, any vets, in our emergency room or in our doctor's offices. And it amazes me that they're so proud to, go to the VA, and they won't use the emergency room. They don't abuse anything. And I hear there's a lot of transportation problems down here in our rural area. And why don't they accept VAs down into the doctor's offices?
Okay. Thank you.
Lori, I wish you would call the office in Greenville. It's 931-1003. And leave your name and number and let us get back with you. I'm going to be in the office the majority of the day until about 4 o'clock. If you would, I'd like to look into this issue that you talked about. I can't answer it unless I do get a chance to do some research. But if you will call the office and ask that question. We're trying to do everything we can. That's what the Senate met yesterday, did a news conference. Richard Burr was there. And is to talk about giving options to veterans if they are in a situation where they're not close to a VA hospital, to make it easier. There is a process now that you can go, as Mike mentioned up in Elizabeth City, you can go to a doctor that's not affiliated with the VA, but you have to get permission to do that, and usually that's not a problem. But if you would, Lori, call the Greenville office and let us get a number and call you back.
Thank you, Lori. Let's take another call or two here with Congressman Jones, 561-8255. Ross, you're on with the Congressman.
Good morning, Congressman. I appreciate
Good morning,
everything
Ross.
you do for the people in eastern North Carolina.
Thank you, Ross.
My statement is, why isn't there more of an effort, at least in my opinion, I don't see that there has been, but why isn't there more of an effort to address the fraud that apparently is rampant amongst our social programs in North Carolina, such as our Medicare or Medicaid and our welfare programs and so on? Because it just seems to me, looking from the outside in, that these programs need to be in place for people that need them.
Yeah.
And it would be there for them, and we wouldn't have so much of a problem with
Great
these
question.
programs.
Great question, Ross.
If indeed the fraud could be addressed.
Ross, I will promise you and truthfully that the state and the federal government tries the best they can. The problem is the system is so large that you have more access to fraud and abuse, and that's no excuse. But I do know that the Inspector General of the agencies, especially at the federal level, I cannot speak to the state level, but whenever we notify the Inspector Generals that there is a evidence of fraud or abuse, that they do go in there and try to weed it out. But it is we passed legislation when I was first there. Bill Clinton signed it into law to deal with the issue of fraud and abuse, and I think some progress has been made, but quite frankly, we need to continue to stay on top of it. That's not the answer I'd like to be giving you. I wish I could tell you that we're making great progress in eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, but we're making progress, but it's not where it needs to be.
All right, we're almost out of time. We're going to try to get two more in. Mary, if you could go very quickly with Congressman. Go ahead, you're on.
Okay. Hi, Congressman Jones.
Good morning,
my
Mary.
question is, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My question is, I hear all these things about we're doing hearings on Benghazi, we're doing hearings on the veterans issue, we're going to do a hearing on this Bergdahl guy who got released. We got back.
Right.
What good are these hearings? What are you going to do after the hearings? That's what I want to know. It just seems like the hearings are just to be done.
Okay, we got it. Go, Congressman.
Well, Mary, I would say that I would hope there would be action taken. Any of the three issues that you talked about, Benghazi or the Bergdahl, situation, I would think that the Congress will take some type of action. I will be honest with you. I think if the president has bypassed the Constitution, then that leads us to another situation where the Congress needs to look. I mean, all the presidents since I've been there seem to always feel like they have the authority to bypass the Constitution, and I want Congress to take action that we have the right to take based on the Constitution. So we'll see where these go, but I don't think you're going to see Benghazi. I think Darrell Issa has done a great job of staying on top of that. He's now Trey Gowdy is going to look at it in a way that maybe can lead to some criminal type action. We're just going to have to see where it goes. But I don't think the Congress will sweep anything under the rug. I really do not. Neither party. I want to be fair about it.
Congressman, we got folks on hold. We have to do this again soon because we're out of time.
Yeah.
We're out of time. We're not going to. That's all the time we got. It's great to see you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for all you're doing for us. And next time you come in, we'll start the calls earlier. Obviously,
and
we don't ever do the calls in the morning, so people want to talk to you.
And thank you for not inviting my wife and myself down to the beach bop because I can't.
No.
bop.
I think you need to come down and shag. I've heard you can shag. That's your and my era now.
That's a real joke. You're younger than I am. You're younger than I am.
Thank you, Walter. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Congressman Jones. All right, we'll be right back.